Thank you so much, as he always does on a Friday. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk joins us. And, hey, Mike, anything going on here in South Florida these days? Holy crap. Hey, so, Mike, I got to ask you to start with, were you surprised as badly as he played Monday Night Football through the first three quarters against the Steelers? Were you surprised that Mike made the move?
No, I wasn't surprised. It's still jarring when it happens, but, he had made the comment, everything's on the table after one of the not so great games from Tua Tagovailoa earlier this year. He quickly the next day said that doesn't mean Tua will be benched, but that door had already been cracked open a little bit. And so when he said it on Tuesday, the morning after a game that featured, and look, I don't want to be overly critical of Tua, but we have to be realistic. He gets those moments, Joe, 2 or 3 times a game where the first read isn't there. He's got a defender running right at him, and it's like system overload, system shutdown.
Yes.
Doesn't throw the ball away, just completely freezes. You can't have that. You just can't have that. And it becomes disqualifying when you can't coach it out of the guy. Now, maybe another coach somewhere thinks that he'll be the one to figure out how to get to it, to just throw the ball away in that moment. But when Mike said what he said Tuesday, it became obvious what was coming Wednesday. We spent a lot of time Wednesday morning on PSC Live talking about Tua to the bench, Quinn Ewers. I had heard that they want to see what Quinn Ewers can do. And look, if Quinn Ewers can be the guy, it really does help balance out the significant cap charges they're going to take onto his contract. You got a guy who's a 7th-round rookie on a slotted contract that's as cheap as it can be for a quarterback, and you can't give him another contract even if you want to until after his 3rd season. So if Quinn can play, that gives them a get-out-of-purgatory free card for the Tua back end of the contract. So it doesn't surprise me. They got 3 games to see if Ewers is the guy. It's data points in advance of what they're going to do at quarterback next year. And it's also, I think, a self-preservation move by a coach who's going to be working for a new GM. And Mike McDaniel needed to be able to demonstrate flexibility and willingness to move on from Tua. And obviously, Tua is not going to be there next year.
We all agree on that. There's this, he can't come back from this. I agree. They're about ready to take the big cap hit and pay him his money and move on. Hey, Mike, we got all kinds of stuff coming in today. I'm going to hit you with all of it here. Do you think Stephen Ross was involved in this decision? He was definitely told about it before it happened, but do you think he made the decision that he called Mike and said, try somebody else?
I don't know that any owner makes a decision. One of the benefits of being a multi-billionaire is that you never have to say, do this. If the people you pay a lot of money to who are surrounding you are astute, they pick up on your cues, they interpret things from your questions, you never have to say, do this. You never have to call rank. That's how I believe Jimmy Haslam has run the Browns from the day that he bought them. So he can say with a straight face, I don't make any of the decisions. No, but the things you say in the presence of your key employees make the decisions. It lets them know if they want to continue to be your employees, these are the decisions they're going to make. I think that this was something that obviously has to be approved by the owner.
Yes.
Especially because the owner's been more involved in the front office dealings. The trades that were going to be done. People were saying, oh, this is Champ Kelly's opportunity to win the job. He didn't have the keys to go trade whoever he wanted to trade. I had somebody that I've known for years say, oh, yeah, he should just trade everyone and go get a bunch of street free agents and show that he can put a team together and then he can get the permanent job. It's like, first of all, nobody thinks he's getting the permanent job. And second of all, the owner's not going to let him do that. They're not going to let him give away Jalen Waddle. They're not going to let him give away Bradley Chubb. So I think the owner's been involved. And I think this ultimately came from the logical conclusion. When you have 4 straight wins where you are trying to navigate around one of the highest paid players in the league, and then when the run game is taken away and one of the highest paid players in the league can't deliver, you get to a point where you're going to lose the locker room if you don't make a change.
I agree.
That's the other wild card in all this. And there's nothing wild about it. If the locker room is out on a guy and the coach continues to cling to him, the locker room is going to be out on the coach.
So, Mike, so Chris Greer's out. Tua's going to be out. So that leaves the one guy, and we had a big alumni function last night for the 60-year anniversary of the Miami Dolphins, and people want to know, like, so does Mike McDaniel, is he safe? You think it's still open? You think the owner's made up his mind to keep him?
It all comes down to who the GM is and whether or not the GM is going to be given full reign to run the team the way that he sees fit. And this is what happens when you do half measures. This is what happens when the coach and the GM don't have equal accountability. And I'm not saying that Mike should have been fired with Chris Grier. I'm saying when you fire one or the other, you create these scenarios. And when you fire the GM and keep the coach, anyone out there that aspires to be a GM, they scout players and they scout coaches. The new GM is going to show up with a list in his pocket of the 5 coaches that he'd like to work with. And unless Mike McDaniel happens to coincidentally be on that list, one of the realities is as we move forward, we wait for the moment that the new GM makes a change. I'll give you an example. When Bob Quinn became the GM of the Lions, Jim Caldwell was the head coach. Jim Caldwell was doing a pretty good job. Jim Caldwell arguably shouldn't have gotten fired. But Bob Quinn had at the top of his list his New England colleague, Matt Patricia, and he was bound and determined to get Matt Patricia to Detroit. That's how those things happen. So if McDaniel's going to have a chance, if he's not already on the new GM's list, he better earn a spot on the GM's list. And one way to do it is to show I'm not tied to Tua. Forget about that FaceTime from when I got hired. That was all what I had to do to try to strike the right relationship. I'm not, stubborn. I'm not unrealistic. I'm not the one that gave him $53 million a year. That's another thing that fascinates me, Joe, because I can't rule out the possibility that someone within the organization could become the new GM. One of the folks already there, if they want to keep Mike, that may be a way to do it. And when you go back and reconstruct the events surrounding Tua's contract that they never should have given him, man, if there was anybody on the record in the building saying we shouldn't do this, that person looks like a genius. Now, not that it took a genius to come to the conclusion that they shouldn't have done it, that they didn't need to do it, but if somebody was standing up, remember when in the Giants Hard Knocks offseason, they were talking about what to do with Saquon, and one of the execs was like, are we sure we want to do this? Like, that guy should be the GM. So there's somebody in there that was saying, hey, no. We don't need to give Tua $53 million a year. We don't need to do anything. He's in his 5th-year option. We're bidding against no one. So I think that there may be a way to have some kind of continuity if Stephen Ross thinks there's an internal candidate who he has faith in, born from the fact that person was saying, I don't think we should be giving Tua $53 million a year.
Mike, so you can imagine what this week's been like since this has come down and what happened to Tua. What do you think happened to Tua? Why he is so much worse than he's been? Like his drop off over the last 2 years. I mean, it is frightening where he is right now. He does it. Whatever you want to say, I can't disagree. I've heard about everything. He's scared. He's worried about getting hit. He can't throw it. He's got no confidence. I go, yeah, that could all be true. What do you think has happened?
Well, let me put it this way. I think the one obligation that we all have in life is to get the most out of our inherent talents, wherever they came from, whatever we believe, God-given, just natural DNA, however we have the things we do that we do well. Our responsibility, I believe, is to maximize those talents to the best of our ability. Tua has maximized his inherent talents as best as he can. He's not very tall. His arm's not naturally strong. You could look at him and look at all the measurables and say, okay, probably not an NFL quarterback. Look at what he's done with the natural talent that he has, with the propensity for head injuries because he's not a very big guy. He gets thrown around. Remember that Bengals game?
Oh, do I?
He was like a rag doll.
Yeah.
He was like a rag doll. So, and I remember the first time I was ever around, and I think it was Boomer Esiason and Dan Marino. at one of the Super Bowls at the media center. I was talking to the two of them, and it's like, dude, where's the beanstalk? Like, you don't appreciate how big these guys are until you're standing next to them. And I'm Tua's size. And I'm standing there looking up at these guys saying, holy crap. So, you know, as Sim said yesterday when we were talking about this on the show, size is a skill. You're bigger, you're stronger. So my point is this. Tua deserves admiration and applause and acclaim for what he's been able to do, because the deck was stacked against him. He shouldn't have been the 5th overall pick, frankly. He shouldn't have gotten a $53 million contract. But you know what? He positioned himself to get it. He played well enough that someone gave it to him, even though they shouldn't have done it. So Tua checks the box of getting the absolute most out of his God-given ability, and he hit a ceiling that he couldn't get through. It's that simple. There's a ceiling that he can't break through.
I leave you with this on the Tua topic, which is obviously everybody's got an opinion on. That's all anybody's wanted to talk about here in South Florida over the last few days. So do you think he gets they're going to release him most likely? And so does anybody pick him up to be a starter? Does he get picked up at all? Or is there a chance he just shuts it down and says, I'm done?
Well, here's how this works. First, we have the coaching carousel that's going to start to spin in 16 days. After the Week 18 games, we don't even wait till Black Monday. They start firing guys right after the games. Look at Gerard Mayo. I mean, hell, they're still in the locker room, and Gerard Mayo's out.
Right.
So once we know who the coaches are next year, who the coordinators are next year, that's when the quarterback carousel starts to spin. Who's going to be available? Who's looking for veterans? And, you know, I talked about size. The reason Sims and I got down this path, his dad's coach, Bill Parcells, firm believer in quarterback can't be too short, can't be too tall. There's a range. And if you're above it or below it, you can't play quarterback for me. There's going to be coaches out there who are going to say, sorry, can't play for me. You're too short, period. No offense. Nice guy. You're too short. Can't play for me. So that's going to take him off the board. The durability issues are going to take him off the board. You know, and I think the cult is shrinking, but it's the Tim Tebow, Shadur Sanders dynamic where this guy brings with him a fan base that's going to be demanding, that's going to be distracting, that's going to want him to play. Is he going to be suited to being a backup? Will there just be too much coverage of him? Like, you know, backup quarterbacks have a specific lane that they need to fill, and some personalities are too big for that lane. So the thing that's going to help him is if the Dolphins cut him, they owe him $54 million next year, which means he can go somewhere else and make the $1.3 million veteran minimum,
right,
or thereabouts. I think it's 1.3 for him based upon his skill, not his skill level, but his experience level. And the Dolphins have to pay the rest. That's what Russell Wilson did to the Broncos. They owed him like 39. He went to the Steelers for the minimum at the time. So the Steelers got a bargain. So if you think of it in terms of your overall roster management and cap allocation, you can get a guy who has won plenty of games, who has shown he can do some good things, and you get him for peanuts. And there's value in that. So I think he'll get a roster spot. He'll at least be number 2 somewhere with an opportunity to play if the guy in front of him gets injured. I don't think somebody's going to hand him a starting job. I don't think that's going to happen. But it all depends upon who the coaches are, where they are, what their coordinators are, and which teams are going to be looking for veteran quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's it's going to be an interesting one. I just didn't see this whole thing coming. Of course, at this event last night, everybody's brother has an opinion on this whole crazy story. By the way, how good was Thursday Night Football last night? How good was that show, and good for business, not to mention the 4 or 5 games that are going to feel like playoff games starting tomorrow with Green Bay at Chicago and going into Tampa Bay and Carolina and Jacksonville at Denver, Steelers at the Lions, and the Patriots at the Ravens trying to hold off the Buffalo Bills. I mean, it is unbelievable the way this has turned out over the last few weeks.
Last night was one of those games that reminded me of a movie that you've been waiting to go see for months, and you expect it to be great, and you're kind of thinking, you know, what usually happens when you have that level of expectation that falls short. Last night exceeded it. We'd known this showdown was coming. We'd known it was going to be very impactful in the NFC West race, in the chase for the number 1 seed in the NFC, and it over-delivered. And when it felt like it was done, when it was 30-14 and Sam Darnold threw the interception that Kobe Turner picked off, and I think plenty of people probably turned off their TVs at that point. There may have been some people in Seattle that decided, let's beat the traffic and get the hell out of here. And to see it turn the way it did, and then to just have all the crazy moments after that, that 2-point conversion play, which absolutely was the right call. And the teaching point for every football player is, if you see a loose ball, pick it up. You never know when that ball is going to be deemed to have still been live. Pick that ball up. Zach Charbonnet, who was just like picking up a piece of paper that missed the trash can, right? He's just doing a nice, I'm picking up the football. He gets the 2 points that causes the tie. And then overtime, it was just great. Everything about that game last night was fun. It was almost 4 hours of fun. And I think it was the most exciting regular season game since the Rams-Chiefs Monday before Thanksgiving 54-51 classic from 2018. I can't think of another regular season game that was that much fun, mainly because to qualify, it's got to be the collective shared standalone experience. It can't be a game that gets tucked into the 1 o'clock window. It's got to be a game that we're all watching. And anybody who wasn't watching last night missed a hell of a show.
Mike, I know you said I got to wait till the end of the year to find out my MVP, and I know he lost last night, but my God, Matthew Stafford without one of his 2 sidekicks there, and Devontae Adams being out, 40 touchdowns now, 5 picks on the season. He's getting real close to getting that MVP, Mike.
But here's the key. Are they going to get the 1 seed? Will the Bills win the division? Josh Allen's making a push here. Will the Patriots get the 1 seed? Drake May is still in the conversation. Once week 18 ends, it becomes a lot more clear. That doesn't mean it's going to be obvious, but it becomes a lot more clear. And Joe, hey, one last point from last night, which is just amazing to me. Because the Seahawks won, the team that came out of this with the biggest boost, who wasn't involved in the game at all, is the 49ers.
Yes.
All the 49ers have to do right now, for all the injuries, all the adversity, all the crap they've dealt with this year, they beat the Colts, they beat the Bears. It comes down to week 18 against the Seahawks. If they win their next 3 games, the 49ers get the bye week, get the 1 seed, get up to 2 games at home in the playoffs. And, oh, by the way, if they make it to the Super Bowl, it's in their stadium.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I didn't even think of that. But Shanahan also going to be coach of the year. If that continues like that, that'll be
If they're the 1
phenomenal.
seed, he'll be coach of the year.
Yeah.
If he's the 1 seed, he'll – and see, that's another reason why I say wait until week 18.
Yeah.
If the 49ers steal the 1 seed in the NFC, Kyle Shanahan will be coach of the year.
Unbelievable. Mike, thank you as always. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk joining us here to talk a lot about Tua, as well as what's going on in the National Football League. We've got to take a quick break. We got more stuff to get to right after this.